Are you looking for work? And information on creating a resume. Resumes are kind of hard. For every person you find out there, you see a different format of resume. Writing a cover letter, also a very difficult thing. How do you stand out? Do you use buzzwords, and do you go overboard using buzzwords and all these kind of silly things? How to conduct an interview. Very important how to conduct an interview. Just a quick anecdote of my own. I used to work for Statistics Canada. J'étais bilingue selon les normes minimum du federal government du Canada. Do we have any francophones in the room? Was that terrible French? Thank you. It was terrible French. But I was bilingual according to the federal government, at least according to minimum standards. I'm very good at giving an interview. I'm very good at sitting across from the person who's judging my French and walking my way through it. In some ways, I think it's good. A lot of people, unfortunately, are very shy. They sit and they talk like this. Very frustrating. I know I'm making mistakes, but I still go through it, and I think that's what gets me through. But I am by no means bilingual. Where was I going with that? How to give an interview. So being able to project, being able to speak confidently, that's all very important. It's a good skill to have. I always encourage people, my colleagues, find an excuse to give a presentation. I don't care what it's about. I don't care what the audience is. Get up in front of people and say something. A list of different job search sites. So if you don't want to use our job search feature, you can just go right to the job site, Monster, the Canadian Job Bank, the Career Beacon, Indeed. I find Indeed is kind of a nice one. So again, Indeed kind of grabs a bunch of other results and puts it up. It has a bunch of other features on it. Staffing agencies, something that I don't hear a whole lot about, but is also important. So Adecco, David Applin, personnel search. So a staffing agency, depending on what kind of job you're looking for, can be a great way to get yourself into, even if you're looking for a temporary position to get your foot in the door to build some experience. So those links are all there. How am I doing for time? Oh dear. I promise I'll finish before lunch. Yeah? Okay. So again, here's the publications. So this link down below here will take you to, I don't know if we have internet on the thing, but I won't try. Statistics Canada, everybody's favorite fun time place. I'm going to tell you a quick story that's really fun. When I used to work at Statistics Canada, I worked on something called the input-output model. Now, the input-output model is a giant, complex model of the Canadian economy. So it's under something called the System of National Accounts, which uses national accounting concepts. That's like you don't have to really know any of this. It's a quasi kind of cousin of financial accounting concepts. The data from that model is used with the HST program. So the HST that's collected in Nova Scotia, how that's distributed to Nova Scotia and to other provinces uses this data. So my friend, he worked on this, specifically on this tax issue. So his job combined the fun of economics, the thrill of financial accounting concepts, and the excitement of multi-jurisdictional tax law. Just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from and how difficult some of these classification issues are. So Stats Canada, daily publication, every single day, I think except for maybe Easter and Christmas and New Year's, there's more data being released. So if you're not subscribed or if you don't check in on the daily every now and then, just take a quick second if you have an internet connection. Say, what are they talking about today? Oftentimes you'll see some neat studies like that one I talked about the tax, where they link the tax data to look at migrant workers. CANSIM's actually being phased out this year, I found out. They're going to replace it with a system that's maybe a little bit better, but losing that CANSIM number I think is a lot of people are going to be upset about that. But there's a lot of data on that. If you want to find out something, chances are you're going to be able to find it on CANSIM if the data's there. The Census/National Household Survey, a lot of other different data on that collected every 5 years. A lot of very detailed information by detailed knock codes. You can look at a lot of median, average wages, deciles, 90th and 10th, so you can get a good distribution of the information. A lot of different studies, which I've talked about, and various surveys and administrative databases. What's the difference between a survey and administrative database? A survey is very expensive. Actually, I think I have a whole slide on this. Anyway, yeah, I have a whole slide. I'll talk about it later on. So daily publication. Every single day you can log on to that and see what new information there is. Sometimes it's boring, like oil seed crushing statistics, and you can say, okay, whatever. Sometimes it's exciting, like the labor force survey or the inflation rate. Exciting for me. So every day at 9:30 Atlantic Standard Time, right on front on their homepage. So CANSIM, it's free to use. It never used to be free. I think it was in 2006 or 2007 maybe. It became free to use. It used to cost you like $3 per run. So you can go in there and look up data to your heart's content. It's searchable. You've got the labor force survey, you've got income data, something called the Survey of Employment and Payroll Hours, which gives you some interesting occupation information. And there's a whole host of other data offerings. Health data, you name it, basically, they collect information on it. You allow for multiple cross-tabulation, so you can look at the labor force by province, age, gender, industry, and occupation. Now, the labor force survey is a sample survey, so bless me. The industry and occupation groupings tend to be fairly not specific. So if you're looking for a specific teacher occupation, you're probably not going to find it. If you're looking for somebody who works in manufacturing, a broad category, it'll be there. There's little sub-provincial detail available, unfortunately. So a lot of information is from sample surveys. You don't get a lot of sub-provincial. So, and I know that can be very frustrating for people here. If you're in Cape Breton and knowing the median wage of an electrician in Nova Scotia doesn't really help you very much. You need to know what's going on in Cape Breton. The National Household Survey can help you with that because it's a much broader sample, a third of every household, or a third of households. And I mentioned it's being phased out this year. I was quite sad to hear that. The new searchable, I played with the new searchable feature in a beta test. It's actually really neat what they've done. I think it's going to make finding information a lot easier. Referencing information, I think, will be much more difficult. The census, every 5 years, including next year. So the census is everything. Every household gets a census. And a third of households get this longer form National Household Survey. So the census is very small amount of information collected on it. The population, age and sex, family, households, and marital status, type of dwelling, and language. And that's basically all you get out of the census. Everything else, income, and all sorts of stuff is coming from the National Household Survey. Broad collection of other variables of household income, education, labor status, etc. Stuff about visible minorities, where you lived 5 years ago, all that kind of stuff. So you maybe somebody asked before about people who have moved to other countries. I'm not sure, I think there is questions in there about whether or not you've come to Canada or not come to Canada too. So there's all kinds of labor market information. It's all free. There's lots of free tables in there you can go look at. You can spend days looking at it. I do sometimes. Some administrative data also provide detailed geography. Not sure why I have that on the Census Household Survey one. But so somebody mentioned the employment insurance. There's actually a fairly broad administrative database from employment insurance. So they keep track of who's drawing it. So on CANSIM, you can look up and see how many people are drawing employment insurance, where they're living. There's actually really one of the nice things about an administrative data source is you can look at detailed geography. So you can look at New Glasgow, for example, to see how many people are drawing unemployment insurance there. So studies and data reviews. I'll talk about this too much, I think. It's long form and short form. I don't know what that means. Studies with varying depths of research. So here's just a couple of studies. Analytical studies, branch research paper series, source country, female labor force participation, and the wages of immigrant women in Canada. If you're interested in looking at gender issues, looking at a study like this would be very interesting. Economic Insights is another publication they put out fairly frequently. Recent developments in the Canadian economy, fall of 2014. So you can get a good look what happened in the Canadian economy in the fall of 2014. Sometimes they'll have more provincial information, sometimes less provincial information in these things. So here's a fun little slide. Survey data versus administrative data. The survey is great because it's designed for statistical purposes. I want to know what the unemployment rate is. You can get that from the labor force survey. I want to know what the unemployment rate is. You cannot get that from employment insurance data. What is the difference between somebody drawing unemployment insurance and somebody who's unemployed?
Money?
Well, sure, money. There's lots of differences. Employment insurance, you're drawing. Huh?
The government's keeping track of the person that's drawing unemployment insurance, whereas they might not know what the just unemployed person is doing.
I like that answer a lot. It gets to an important issue that I've run into. Somebody started telling me that there's no workers available because there's nobody drawing unemployment insurance. Does that mean there's nobody unemployed? Not even. Maybe they're just not drawing unemployment insurance. Maybe they didn't apply. Maybe their claim has run out. But they're still unemployed because they're looking for work. So I did a quick little look And again, I used CanSim. I looked at how many people in Nova Scotia were drawing on unemployment insurance and how many people are unemployed. And depending on the month you're looking at, you could be an extra between 40 and 90% more people unemployed than what is drawing unemployment insurance. So it's important to understand the difference between those two things. So the administrative database, why is that great? It's free. Free to the statistician and anybody who's on Statistics Canada website. So that data is being collected to run an unemployment insurance program, employment insurance program. So like a parasite, the statistician goes in and says, like I was asked that question earlier to Andre, or no, sorry, it was to Kara, I think. I want to know what kind of data is from these, you're collecting from these assessment tools. I am a parasite. I contribute nothing to it, but I want to know things from it. So that's what happens with these administrative databases. The tax file is another great one. Lots of great information from the tax database. And like a parasite, Statistics Canada goes to CRA and takes all of that. By the way, Statistics Canada gives nothing to CRA. Some people get concerned about that. CRA finds out nothing from Statistics Canada. It only works one direction. University graduates, there's Maritime Provinces Higher Education Commission has a great database on their website that you can look up to see how many people are graduating, what they're graduating with. Quick quiz. How many people graduated with bachelor's degree in Nova Scotia were not from Nova Scotia, percentage-wise? 50%. 50% of graduates from Nova Scotia universities were from other provinces and I think other countries too. So the Federal Job Bank website, you said that you were familiar with that. One of the great things on this is that purple spot down there, job market trends. And they have a job search. I'll zoom ahead a little bit. We're a little bit behind time anyway. Federal Job Bank Trends presents latest labor market statistics, blah, 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 highlights news stories. So one of the nice things on here is you can go into, click on Nova Scotia and say, I want to see some news stories about what's going on. And they'll highlight if there's a big project going on, if there's a store opening, if there's a store closing. So that gives you a little bit of information about what kind of jobs might be coming up in a specific region. It's not comprehensive. They're just highlighting whatever news stories catches their eye at the day. They do update it fairly frequently. It's presented on a weekly basis. Labor market bulletins might be something that might be something more useful. Again, they release that at a provincial basis. So if you're looking for something very specific geography, I don't think I can help you beyond what I've said with the National Household Survey and whatnot, unfortunately. But the Service Canada thing, I think what you're talking about that Service Canada used to do has been replaced by this news business that they present and these labor market bulletins. I think the labor market bulletins, they actually get into some specific stories too, like here's something that's going on, like any of the big projects or whatnot. You can get all kinds of, they use data from all over, the Statistics Canada, tax filer, various administrative. They also model their own data based on that information to create very specific community level information. So this is kind of a neat, I did a screenshot of one of their maps. So if you want to know how many business parks are located in Nova Scotia, here they are. So this is, you can get different levels of geographic detail here. I've got just some average household income, and I think this is federal electoral districts. So if you want to know where federal MPs represent, this map shows you that. You can also get MLA districts for the province as well. So there's a lot of options on here. I could spend a while just walking through that. So I mentioned the Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency. Here's their website. There's a lot of great information on here. Website information on training and exams for trades. Does anybody know what a red seal is? Probably all familiar with that. You can do practice tests on the red seal trades website. Guess what I got for crane operator? I'm not a red seal. I got a 25%, which is what you would get if you just randomly guessed at the multiple choice answers. It's really complicated. I did hairstylist too. Guess what I got as a hairstylist? 35. If you think being a hairstylist is easy, you are sorely mistaken. It's quite complicated according to that. So one of the neat things they have up on here, they tell you about the 69 designated trades. So, and they show you here whether or not they're red seal. This green and yellow thing here is kind of neat. The yellow thing tells you whether or not it's compulsory certified under the, whatever the act is, the Apprenticeship and Trade Qualifying Act, and the green tells you whether or not it's compulsory certified under some other act. So this one down here, blaster, is under occupational health and safety, I think. So you can't become a blaster unless you're certified by the occupational health and safety. So if you're helping to counsel somebody in trades, this is a wonderful resource to get into. There's also the trades profiles. So my colleague put a lot of information or a lot of effort into coming up with these trades profiles, and they contain a lot of great information, required skills, what you need to get into it, whether it's apprenticeable, whether they're compulsory certified, Red Seal, what kind of training pathways you can do. And I've learned a lot about trades since I've been doing this job, and it's really quite complicated. How do you become a carpenter? You can get certified as a carpenter. You can go to NSCC. I can walk out of this building and call myself a carpenter as well. You wouldn't want to hire me, but I could do that. The training and LMI statistics, you look at what kind of training is available, what institutions, I think, provide it. The apprenticeship statistics, where apprentices are, you can get that by different regions in the province. It's really great. And how many of you have used the Career and Gear website? It's pretty cool. Have you taken the tests in it? Yeah? I've done a few too. So this is a new thing launched by Nova Scotia Community College. I don't think they've officially announced it yet. They've done what they call, I think, a soft launch on it. And what they really want to do is you can find out about yourself and your career options through games and information. So they were talking today about these assessments that they do where people just go in and do different little games. So I guess it's a similar kind of thing. And so there's lots of different stuff you can do on it, including, oh, you can't even read it. Oh well. But you can do all kinds of cool stuff. They have this is all the different game stuff. Here's where you can pick your occupations you might be interested in. One of the games you fill out, you pick some cards or something like that, and it tells you what your qualities are. Are you helpful? Are you influential? That kind of thing. So I took the test, and this is real results for me. I'm apparently inquisitive and creative, and I'm not helpful. I am not influential. I am not organized. I do not do things hands-on. I dare you to do worse than that. It does have an option below where you can edit your answers, so maybe I can go back and fix that so I'm not such a loser. Actual results for Joe in life pattern game, it's called. And they have and it's interesting because they had another game that gives you similar results for these different things, and it was fairly consistent with what this provided. And I wasn't attempting to get that result. I really just did it honestly. So that's kind of neat.